Spoiler alert, obviously. If you clicked on this video, I'm going to talk about this book. So if you don't want spoilers, don't watch the video. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're not, welcome back. We have an extra fun one today. Before we get into this, if you are my family, friends, or anyone who knows me in real life, do not watch this video, okay? Click off. Literally click off. Do not watch this video. And if you do, don't tell me because I don't want to know. Today, I'm going to be doing a full breakdown of Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. Yeah. Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. I read all 583 pages in the last 2 nights, so you don't have to. So I have seen this book everywhere, all over my For You page. Everybody's either really mad about it or like really loving it, and I feel like I was missing out. So I read the entire thing. And I'm gonna tell you everything so you don't have to go read it because I honestly should not have done that. Before we jump right into the book, pause and read this trigger warning, and if any of these things are triggering to you, feel free to click off the video. You won't be missing anything, okay? So let's jump into it. Let's go over the main people in this book so you kind of have an idea of who I'm talking about when I'm talking about these people. So we have our female lead, okay, Adeline, or in this book, the manipulator. The book throughout has dual POV, and it's like between the manipulator and the shadow. Okay, so the manipulator is Addie or Adeline. She's an author. She's the main girl. She has absolutely zero survival instincts, and she's brunette. That's about all I got for you. This is what I imagine her to look like with AI generation. So, you also have Addie's best friend, Daya, who is a baddie, okay? She's a hacker. I love her. She is Adeline's #1 supporter. And then we have the shadow, which is Zaid, which is the weirdest name ever, but whatever. He's a computer hacker by day, murderer by night, and stalker by other night. So definitely, oh, and he's our main male lead, okay? Oh, and he's got a scar on his eye, a white eye, super sharp jawline, and dark hair. This is what I think he would look like if I had to use AI generation and a little bit of my artistic ability. This book starts off with Addie, our main girl, the manipulator, inheriting this like really big, creepy, haunted mansion, like Victorian mansion, called Parsons Manor, okay? And it's located in Seattle. So it starts with her, basically her Gigi died. Is it Gigi? Or no, sorry, her Nana died and passed it down to her. And her mom's basically like, it's creepy and people died here. Why do you want it? And she's like, I love creepy. Actually, I love everything horror and creepy. So I'm going to move into it. So she's already like a little creepy, okay? She loves scary, which is the theme of the book throughout the whole thing. She's got some obvious mommy issues. But anyway, so she's moving into this mansion, whatever. Her mom's really mean. She's like a cunt, okay? And not the nice kind. So she's really mean, whatever. She wants her to not move in. She moves in anyway. She is an author, a successful indie romance author, okay? And this is only mentioned like in the beginning of the book. And then for some reason she doesn't have a job like throughout the whole book until the end. But anyway, so she's an author and she's going to a book signing in town. And she's at this book signing. She's kind of socially awkward. And she feels like tingles on her back. She's like, someone's staring at me. Someone's staring at me, but whatever. She's like, I'm socially awkward. Like, it's probably nothing. It's not nothing. It's a stalker. It's our stalker. Okay. Our man. It's our man's. All right. So she goes to this book signing. She's like, weird. I feel like I'm being watched. And then she goes home, whatever. She's hanging out with Daya, which is her bestie tight, like booty hole. Okay. They are best friends. And they've been best friends for a while, and Daya's her #1 supporter, and she's like, girl, you need to get some. So Daya takes Addie's phone and texts Grayson, more like dirty text him, okay? Grayson's like this douche that like she hooks up with sometimes, and Daya texts her as if she's Addie and is like, come over, and Grayson comes over, and yeah, whatever. So they're getting it on, okay? Addie and Grayson, and then there's a loud bang on the door. Bang, bang. Guess who's here? Your man's. There's a loud bang on the door. She's like, oh my God, I'm so scared. And what does Grayson do? He doesn't answer the door. He's like, you got this, right, Addie? You got it. So she answers the door. No one's there. And then she's like creeped out. And Grayson's like, let's get back to what we were doing. And Addie's like, no. I'm scared. I don't want to keep doing what we were doing. I'm done. The mood is gone. And he gets so mad. He's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And he like punches a hole in the wall of her beautiful mansion, beautiful haunted rundown mansion, punches a hole in the wall, and he leaves, right? Okay. Anger issues. But anyway, that's Grayson. All right, whatever. So he's gone. Oh, important side note as we go along. All the end of the chapters, or like Addie's chapters, there's like a diary entry from who we'll soon find out is Gigi, which is her great grandma, so her Nana's mom. There's like these diary entries, one page at a time at the end of every chapter that's like also telling a story. So bear with me, okay? Stay here, stay with me. Now we're into, so that's how that ends. And then we're getting into the Shadow's POV. His first chapter starts with him brutally torturing someone, like brutally. And there's a lot of detail and it's kind of gross, but I read it for you, okay? It's disgusting. So he's a computer hacker and he tortures people for fun on the side. I already cut off one of his ears along with ripping off 10 of his fingernails, severed both Achilles heels, a couple of stab wounds in specific locations that won't allow the to bleed out too quickly, and too many broken bones to count. Okay, King, go off. The Achilles heel is a little much for me. That's literally like my biggest fear, is getting in my car and then someone slashing my Achilles heels while I'm getting in. But go off. We know that one hurts. So he's good at torturing people. We know that. We also find out he was at the signing earlier when Addie was like, I feel someone watching me. It was him. Surprise. So we get a little bit of our first red flag, really, in this book. I mean, there are many. He is torturing someone, but this red flag is very red. He's standing and watching her at the book signing, and he goes, and I will gladly cross every single line if it means making this girl mine, even if it means forcing her to be mine. Okay, non-consent king. Literally, non-consent. This whole book is like consent, non-consent, just saying, in case that's not in the trigger warnings. But, yeah, so he's like, my eyes are set on you. You are my prey. Addie is home now. Okay, she's home and she's digging around all this old creepy stuff and she finds this diary, which she find out is the diary we're also reading along in the book. And it's Gigi's diary, her great grandma. So whatever, she's like skimming it. She goes to sleep and she wakes up to the sound of someone in her house. This is the time where you utilize your Second Amendment, okay? Someone's in your house. So she goes downstairs, she's like, who's there? Oh wait, she doesn't have one. She's like, who's there? And no one's there, but you know what is there? A rose with all of the thorns already cut off. So at least we know he cares about her. He cut the thorns off. So he did break into her house and he did leave a rose on the counter, but he took the time to cut the thorns off. So he loves her, you know what I mean? So this happens and she's like, okay, weird, I'm creeped out. And then there's like a whole little filler chapter of her and Daya cleaning the house and she's kind of filling Daya in and Daya's like, I'm worried for you. I'm worried for you. And she's like, I'm fine. And then the next chapter, she's standing on the edge of the cliff behind her house and she's like thinking of what would happen if she just jumped. And like, would she die or would she live for a little bit and then die, or is it worth jumping? And then her like neighbor or some dude who's working on her house is like, ma'am, are you good? And she's like, I'm fine. And that's all we get. So she gets like a little suicidal for maybe like 2 pages. And then she's like, actually, I'm fine. Then we get Mommy Dearest coming to visit. She's in town for something else. And she's like, I'm going to stop by Addie's house. So she comes in. She drops a little lore for us. She's like, oh, also, your great grandma Gigi was brutally murdered and no one knows who did it. So it's like an unsolved case. Isn't that fun? So then we find out now she knows like the diary she found. She's like, oh my god, she was brutally murdered. What if I read the diary and I can find out who killed her? Again, we got like a whodunit mystery in this very dark, smutty romance book. So in the midst of all this, she's coming inside and there's a bouquet of roses. Oh, bouquet of roses. Okay, I get it. Like, if you're stalking me, whatever, but you're getting me roses. Like, how can I not fall in love with you? You know what I mean? So she's getting this bouquet of roses, but this one has a note. And this is the first note, like, communication we get from the shadow. And the note says, I'll be seeing you soon, little mouse. Ooh, okay. We're already getting pet names. And then she says, okay, I could have lived without seeing this. Same. I mean, little mouse, this is obviously a man stalking me, and he must be cracked in the f***ing head. Clearly he is. Okay. I love her for that. Love her for that. I would think the same thing, but I'd also think he's in love with me. You know what I mean? So, moving on. Okay, so then after this, we're like, oh, okay, so now we have a name. Well, he's calling us Little Mouse. So we're like, okay, like, I'm down. So then we get into another POV chapter for him, and we get a little more insight on who our stalker is, okay? He created this organization called Z that's like sole purpose is to track down human traffickers and like really bad people, and so he can, you know what I mean? And torture, obviously, because he likes to slash Achilles. So that's kind of like his whole vibe. That's what he's doing when he's not literally stalking Addie. He's out there fighting bad guys, you know, making the world a safer place. So this organization is called Z. Put that in your mind. We also get a little introduction of Jay, which is his friend and like right-hand man of the organization, Master Hacker. Okay, so keep his name in there too. And we get a little sexy description of him taking down bad guys. So usually like when we get his POV and he's working, I mean, I guess it's work, but he's working, it's like a very detailed, like 007 Tom Cruise movie-esque, like take down these really bad people and pew 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 and duck under this and call the security cameras and bring in, you know, it's very like action-y. So we've got a little bit of like 007 action, Tom Cruise blockbuster, with a little murder mystery on the side, with a little bit of romance, with a little bit of like really scary smut, all combined into one lovely book. Literally, if you're a mystery fan, it's for you. If you're an action fan, it's for you. If you're for smut, it's for you. If you're for horror, it's for you. It's for everybody. Oh, also, this is important to note. She did... Okay, that's all we get for him. Back to Addie. So, it's important to note she did file a police report for the roses, because she's like, I'm calling, the police. So she does. She files reports, whatever. So Daya convinces her to go out on a girls' night. A girls' night! What can go wrong? You know what I mean? So she goes Seattle girls' night with Daya. And this guy comes up to her. His name's Arch. He's in here for a little bit. So remember his name. Arch, okay? Just imagine douchey. Douchey with money, okay? This is Arch. So Arch comes up to her and is like, come to my VIP room. And Daya's like, she doesn't go anywhere without me. So what you meant to say is, we are going to your VIP room. So she goes with her and they go up to the VIP room and Addie gets a text message. And this is our first like direct communication via text message other than the note she got. So it says, unknown. Sneaking off with random men, Little Mouse. If I catch his hands anywhere near you, they'll end up in your mailbox by morning. Okay. Listen, when I first started reading this, like when I was gonna read this for this video, I was like, oh god, I'm gonna hate this, like it's gonna suck. But you know, I kinda like it. And I know it's bad, and I don't care. I like what I like. So he says that. She's literally in the club, okay, in the VIP room to be exact, with Daya, and she's like, okay. Literally no survival instincts, just lets that shit roll off her head. And then she continues to flirt, okay? And we end up taking Arch back to the mansion, okay? We're getting steamy. Hot. And when I say steamy, I mean like steamy. One of the steamiest scenes in the book. So far. So far. It gets worse. Or better. We're getting hot and heavy. And it's important to note we're in the sunroom at this point, so it's basically like a big glass box where anybody can see, but it is nighttime, so it's like the void, and she just like knows he's standing out there. She can feel him watching her, and they're doing things, and it's important to note he's using his hand, okay? Gross, I know, gross detail, but you have to know he's using his hands, all right? So they're doing their thing, and then the moment is ruined because guess what? Knock, knock, okay? But this time, instead of Addie having to open the door, Arch is like a baddie, you know? So he's like, I got it. Also, he's strapped. So he's like, I got it. And he goes to the front door and he's like, who is it? Come out. Show yourself, you know? And then Addie's like, okay, come back inside now. And then he doesn't. And then she's like, okay. So she goes outside and Arch is gone. He's gone. But you know what is there? A bloody rose. What do you think happened? I think I know what happened. As she's looking at this bloody rose, she gets a text message from unknown. Don't feel guilty, baby. I don't make idle threats. So consider this a lesson learned. Lesson is learned. All right, so she makes one of the only good decisions that she makes in this book, and she's like, 911. There's a bloody rose on my porch. Also, the man I brought home with me is now missing. Can you come to my house? Basically. And they show up and she learns that Arch, I keep calling him Archie. Okay, this is not Riverdale. This is not opposite of Riverdale. She learns that Arch is like a known criminal, cocaine mafia boss, and also domestic abuser. Okay. So we're also kind of like, okay, so Stalker did her a favor. Also, how many goddamn mafia bosses are in this Seattle, okay? In this town, which is not a small town, but it's written as if it's just like a small town and everybody knows everybody, and it's like, this is Seattle. Like, it's a huge city, but okay. So she finds out he's a really bad person. So we're also like, oh my god, he might have killed him. But then we're also like, oh my god, he might have killed him. You know what I mean? We find out not only does she have a stalker now, but Arch's mafia boss family might be coming after her because he's missing and she was the last person to see him. So now she's like, okay, cool. I've got enemies literally everywhere. So slay! Literally her life is a nightmare. And then simultaneously we're reading the diary entries and we find out some tea on Gigi, okay, our great grandma at this point. So this is a letter giving us a little more info. I'm gonna read some of the letters here and there, but not all of them, obviously, because some of them are just like, okay, we don't really care. So September 10th, 1944. I haven't seen Ronaldo in 3 days. Ronaldo is her stalker. Forgot to mention this, but she was also stalked. So it's like genetic. It runs in the family to have a stalker. So, and to fall in love with them, because that's what she did. So I haven't seen Ronaldo in 3 days. Her stalker. 3 days of wondering where he is. If something happened to him, my thoughts spiraled. John and I got in a fight. John is her husband, by the way. So she's a cheater, pumpkin eater. He says I've changed, that I'm no longer the woman he fell in love with. I'm distant now. When he wants to have, I'm not interested. I've begun to feel like my marriage is wrong and dirty. I've begun to feel like I'm cheating, but not on my husband. It feels like I'm cheating on my visitor. There wasn't much I could say to assure my husband I still love him other than those 3 words. They've begun to feel empty when I say them. Based off the hollowness in his eyes, those 3 words have begun to feel hollow for him too. I'm losing my husband, slowly but surely, and I'm ashamed to admit that I don't mind that too much. Okay, so she's cheating on her husband with her stalker, Ronaldo. But then she's like, I feel like I'm cheating on Ronaldo with my husband because that's who I want to be with. So yeah, cheater, pumpkin eater. But honestly, Gigi slays. Like, if I was alive in 1944 and I had a sexy, hot stalker who was going to take me away, I would cheat on my husband too. And you would too. Don't deny it. Now we're back to Zaid's POV, or the shadow. At this point, she doesn't know who he is. So I'm going to keep referring to him as the shadow until she learns his name. And then we'll start calling him his name. So he's shocking, but he was watching the whole thing of her and Arch, okay? Obviously, because we had a bloody rose. So we kind of get his POV of the whole night, and then we also get a fun little scene where he's stabbing Arch in the stomach, knocks him out, and he dips the rose in his blood, puts it on the porch, and then he takes Arch to his little torture den. Not sexual. And then this chapter is just a very long monologue of, honestly, I feel like the shadow just likes the sound of his own thoughts or voice, because his POVs are just long monologuing of like, I'm so awesome, I kill bad guys and he deserves it, and I'm gonna keep stabbing him because he deserves it. And it's like, okay, we get it, whatever, you kill people, moving on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give me more. So we're back to Addie. We find out her bestie Daya is also a hacker, and weird coincidence. Like, how many hackers are in Seattle? But okay. So she asked Daya to install security cameras, and she's like, okay, I'll install security cameras because I love you and I'm worried for you. So she does. And meanwhile, Addie's bringing in boxes, like, of books to sign because, oh yeah, she's an author. And here we go, reminding the audience that she's an author because it's been like 10 chapters and she hasn't done anything author related. So she's an author. She's bringing books in and there's this box that has no shipping label on it. And she's like, okay. And she goes to pick it up and there's a puddle of blood. So what do we think is in the box? Because if you remember correctly, we did get a little warning about hands ending up in mailboxes, and she doesn't have a mailbox. So what do we think's in the box? I'm waiting. I'm listening. Ding, ding, ding. Correct. Bloody severed hands, okay? Whose hands? You know whose hands, okay? The hands who were on her. And he didn't like that, so he cut them off. So we learned that the shadow is a man of his word, okay? Green flag. Oh, and Arch's entire family was killed. We also find out via news sources. His entire family was killed, so he really just took out the whole bloodline. And then her and Dia are like, let's play detective. Let's find out how Gigi died, who killed Gigi. Because I got nothing better to do. Not like I got a book to write. Not like Dia's got a job to go to. Let's just play detective. So that's what they do. So we're in this like, who killed Gigi? Was it her husband? Was it her stalker? Was it my stalker? And it's just like this really annoying subplot that I hate. So moving on, our stalker's starting to get a little braver. Okay, he's already texting her. Next step is like showing himself, right? So he's getting braver. He's standing like 20 feet from the front of the house and watching her, and she's looking at him and he's looking at her, and she doesn't really see him because he's wearing like a hoodie, so she just kind of sees like this part of him, and she's like, oh my god, he has a sharp jawline and a sharp jawline and the moonlight off his sharp jawline. That's all we get. So homie's got a sharp jawline. He's smoking a cigarette, so he's also got a bad habit. Other than slashing Achilles and stalking. So at this point, her fear of the stalker is kind of like morphing and molding into attraction. So we're still scared of him, but she's like, I'm scared, but also turned on. What's happening? Literally. And then she goes to a book signing with Dia and comes back to red roses covering her entire living room and an empty whiskey glass. And let me just say, if a man filled my living room with roses, I wouldn't complain about it. So she asked Dia to track the texts, and for some reason she can't. She's like, oh my god, he must be like really tech savvy because I can't track this text message. And she's like, oh, okay. Then we get like a long little cat and mouse moment where he's like texting her back and forth, and she's like, is he in my house? Is he not? Honestly, this book didn't have to be 583 pages. Like, it could have been a lot less. There's just a lot of back and forth. Like, we get it. And it just feels really repetitive. So, and then we get face reveal. Okay, so we get a face reveal of him, and she recognizes him from the book signing. She's like, oh my god, you were that guy with the really unique scar across your eye. I know who you are. Oh, also he's in her house. That's how she gets the face reveal. I forgot to say that, but he's in her house. That's how they get the face reveal. And we get this like pressing up, breathing on each other moment. And then we play hide and seek. So we're playing hide and seek, but we're playing dirty hide and seek. So he says, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to allow you the opportunity to run and hide. And if I find you, then I will deliver your punishment. If I don't, you go unpunished, and I will leave. First of all, what are we getting punished for, sir? I think we're getting punished for being with Arch, I guess. Getting it on? I don't know. But anyway, I thought the hands were punishment enough, but apparently not. So they're playing hide and seek. She's running around the house. She's trying to hide. Obviously it fails, okay? Hide and seek then turns into tag because when he does find her, she takes off running, which is like me. I don't play by the rules. So she's running and he catches her, obviously, and then we get this lovely line. You think you're only going to beg because you're fighting for your life, but that's where you're wrong. The only way I'll be sending you to heaven is with my I like can't take this book seriously. Every time I'm like, ooh, okay, he says something like that and I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, we get like the line of the century. So he takes her to the sunroom. Remember what happened in the sunroom? Because I remember what happened in the sunroom. So anyway, he pulls something out in the sunroom. What do you think he pulls out? Because it's not that. It is a firearm. I don't know if I can say the word bun with a G. It was a squirt bottle gun. Squirt gun. What's another word? Firearm? Can I say firearm? Okay, anyway, it was a firearm, a little one, the ones you put in your pockets or like on your hip, and he pulls it out, and you're like, what? Now this is the scene that had everybody like, what is going on? What am I reading? Okay. And me too, if I'm being honest. So this is like the first time they're getting kind of freaky, and he's like moving it up and down her, and it's very slow and detailed. And she's crying because she's like, he's gonna kill me. Like, can you imagine? Like, he's over here like, oh, this is so hot. And she's like, this man is gonna murder me. Like, my stalker breaks into my house and now there's a pointed at me. Like, I'm gonna die. So she's crying. The lines of consent are blurred, practically non-existent. And he tells her to suck on it and the firearm, and she does, and then he puts it. I don't live alone. I'm scared that people are listening to me. We're not even halfway through the book, you guys. We're like 25% of the way in, and there are already firearms being shoved up nature's pockets, okay? So it's going in, it's going out. She's having a blast, but she's also crying. So this is not sanitary or safe. Do not try this at home. Also, this reminds me of that TikTok trend where it's like, you're in the grocery store and you're holding up different items and you're like, do not put this where it does not belong. Like, that is how I feel about this whole scene. Do not put this where it does not belong. When he's done, he basically just like tosses a rose on her and is like, bye, and he leaves. And so she's like, what just happened? Okay. And then it's like the next day, she goes to breakfast with Daya as if nothing happened. And Max, which is Arch's friend, who was in the VIP room at the time, shows up and is like, where's Arch? You're the last person to see him. Where is he? And she's like, girl, I literally don't know. I called the cops. Like, I don't know. And he's like, really? Because you were the last person to see him. And she's like, again, I don't know. So, and he's like, and then he like, leaves. He's interrogating her and she's like, yeah, again, I don't know. All right. And then we get another shadow POV, and guess where he is? He's not outside her apartment or her mansion. He's in her closet. My nightmare. He's in her closet and he's watching her sleep. Aww. So he waits for her to sleep and then he comes out, and then we get this really funny scene because she snores and she like makes like a snorting snore sound, and he's so me. He starts laughing and he like can't control himself. So he literally has to leave the house instead of doing whatever he was gonna do because he just cannot keep it together because she snored. Which is like, it's funny in the sense that like this man is terrifying and really scary and stalking her and living, like not living, but being in her closet, and you're like, oh my god, what is he gonna do? And then she snores and he cannot keep it together. He has to leave. So that's basically, I think this whole part was just to show you that he was in her closet. Like, there's nothing happens other than that. So anyways, he leaves, he goes and takes care of business. We don't care, whatever, he's saving lives. Moving on. So the next night, we're getting into just kind of like night after night, all right? So the next night, Addie wakes up and there's tape on her mouth and she is tied to her bed, okay? And guess what? He shows up and he eats the kitty cat. That's what he does. And it's important to note he's using his teeth, not his tongue. So it's painful. She just wants us to know that. So I want you to know that. So moving on. So next chapter, Shadow's POV. Every chapter in his POV gives me more of an ick. Like, Addie paints him as like this sexy, mysterious stalker. And then we get a Shadow POV and I'm like, ugh, gross. Ew, 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 ew. Like, we get it. You're so good. Like, whatever. You're also a murderer and a stalker. And you're terrifying my girl, you know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to love him when he does not know how to shut up, okay? So we get another monologue chapter. We find out that, okay, so earlier in the book, Addie and Daya, like, got these tickets to this haunted mansion fair thing because they just love freaky things, you know? Honestly, Addie reminds me of, like, that girl in high school, or, like, even the people in real life who are like, I just love all things scary, like, it's Halloween every day for me. Like, okay, we get it. Like, your house looks like Party City Halloween all the time. That's fine. But this is Addie, okay? So her and Daya sign up for this haunted fair that they go to, I guess, like every year, and they get tickets. So this is connected to the Shadow's life because he finds out that the bad guys he's looking for are all gonna be together at this haunted mansion event fair thing too. He doesn't know Addie's going, so at this point he's like, oh, I gotta go to that because the bad guys are there and I'm gonna catch the bad guys. So he doesn't know she's gonna be there. It's just important to note for later. So at this point, we're having phone conversations with our stalker. Addie's like, hey, so Max is like low-key kind of scaring me and like terrifying me and interrogating me about Arch. Like, what are you gonna do about that? Because I know you killed him, so can you handle that? And he's like, don't worry, babe. I got you covered. I'll take care of Max. Which, get me that, okay? That's what I need. Like, hey, so-and-so's bothering me. And he's like, okay, I'll slash his Achilles for you. Mwah. Also, she is telling him all about Gigi and, like, the murder. So he's also, like, playing detective with Addie and Daya to discover who killed Gigi. Like, anybody cares who killed Gigi. No one cares. This whole plot line could have just been plucked out and it would be the same book. So I don't even care. So now that her husband is literally like, I'll take care of Max for you, honey buns, he barges into the VIP room that we were in earlier in the book, and he puts a to Max's down there area, and it's basically like, leave Daya alone. Oh, leave Addie and her friend Daya alone, or I will murder your entire family and you. So, are we good? Capiche? Awesome. That's what he does. He doesn't kill him, but he does scare him. But he leaves him alive, which I don't know why, out of everybody, he has no problem murdering, but he's like, you get to live. I'm just gonna warn you. Okay, I guess because he didn't, like, really touch her? I don't know, but whatever. Okay, so we get, like, a cute-ish moment. Like, a little bit of a cute moment, okay? He is infiltrating a group of pedos, okay? I'm not gonna say it correctly, because I don't know if I'm gonna get censored or whatever. But, kitty diddlers. Pedos? I don't know what else to call them. But he's infiltrating a group of them to take them down. Obvi! So he has to, like, pretend to be one to be in the group. And he sees this guy doing things with a girl. And he sees her wedding ring. And he thinks, Addie won't ever have to worry about that shit when I marry her. That's for damn sure. She doesn't even have to worry about it now. Okay, King, like, we don't even know if Addie likes you yet. And he's already like, when I marry her, she doesn't have to worry about me cheating. She doesn't have to worry about me cheating right now. Like, okay. Why is it working for me? You know what I mean? Alright, so then we get a little update on Gigi's diaries, okay? We find out John, her husband, is drinking a lot. He's angry. He throws things all around. Bad husband. You know, boo, go be with Ronaldo, your stalker, you know what I mean? But she's like, he's drinking a lot and he's throwing things in her diary. So now we're like, oh, maybe it wasn't her stalker. Maybe it was John, her husband, who killed her. But we still don't know. But we're speculating because we have nothing else better to do. I don't know, like write our book by the deadline, or at this point, she does fill Daya in. She's like, hey, so we kind of like did it, me and my stalker, you know, we kind of got down and dirty. And Daya's like, okay, number one supporter. And then they're like, let's get drunk and play detective and figure out who killed your great grandma, Gigi. So they get drunk and they're playing detective. She's plastered, and then our boy, our stalker, shows up while she's drunk, and she gives him a BJ. And there you go. Next, moving on. Fast forward, it's like the next day or two, and he's stalking Addie, like one does. Literally all he does, besides fight crime, okay? So he's stalking Addie, and he bumps into this guy named Mark, who he met at the club he was just at with the pedos, okay? So he was like, oh god, this disgusting, really vile guy, okay? Well, he has to get buddy-buddy with him in order to infiltrate the group. So he bumps into him while stalking Addie, and she is doing her work at this, like, cafe thing. And he's like, oh, buddy, man, like, oh my god, let's go get drinks, like, right here in the same place Addie is sitting. And our boy's like, no, let's go over here. And he's like, actually, no, we're going here. So they end up in the same place where Addie's on her laptop working. And so he's like, okay, well, this is great. Like, worlds collide. So he like sits in a place where he can't see him, like trying to like keep him away from her. And lo and behold, he ends up taking a picture of her because the creepy guy, Mark, he sees her and he's like, oh, she's cute. Takes a picture of her, sends a picture to his trafficking people to get her. And at that point, our boy, the shadow, is like, well, now I have to say something because this is not happening. So he's like, that's my girl. Stop. That is my girl. That's my girlfriend. I'm letting her work. She's working away on her laptop. She likes to be left alone. That's my girl. Don't delete that picture. That's mine. Mine. So that happens, and he's like, oh, why didn't you say anything? Introduce me. So he gets up, and he starts walking over to her, and he's like, okay. So he starts going over, and he's like, oh, Addie, this is Mark, you know, my girlfriend Addie. And Addie's like, imagine you're sitting at your cafe by yourself, working away, and your stalker who just violated you with a firearm walks up with the creepy guy and is like, hey, this is my girlfriend. She's just like, hi. Like, okay. So she plays along, whatever. So we find out that Mark's dad was the detective at the time of Gigi's murder, because somehow everybody knows everybody in Seattle, like it's a town of population 200. So we find out that Mark knows about the murder, whatever. So she's like, oh, I need information from him. And Mark's like, hey, you know what? I'm having an event coming up. You and Zaid should come, and I'll tell you more about your Gigi's murder. So she's like, okay. So she agrees to go as his girlfriend to Mark's creepy event, okay? Just so she can learn more about Gigi's case. So they're going to play boyfriend-girlfriend, which, I mean, love. It's fine by me. So plot twist, Daya reveals that she is a hacker and she works for Z. So you're like, oh, okay, so Zaid's your boss. But she doesn't know that. She's just like, weird, like your stalker sounds like Z, and like I work for Z, but like it's not him, right? Like it can't be him. Not like everybody knows everybody here. It is him, duh. But anyway, at this point, she's like, could be him. I don't know. Like, I just work for this like really big corporation that like saves people. I don't know. That's what he sounds like. Like, that's the annoying part of this book. It's like, why are we beating around the bush? Just be like, oh my god, I work for him. Like, you're basically saying it already. Why does it matter? Anyway. So she's going to the event. This whole conversation happens when Addie's like, hey, I'm gonna go to this event with my stalker at Mark's place, by the way. And she's like, he just sounds so familiar. Anyway, so she decides to wear the dress that Zaid bought her to the event, which, okay, it's giving like Caroline and Caroline and what's his name? Why am I blanking? Vampire Diaries. Stefan, Damon, Salvatore, Klaus. Okay, Klaus. It's giving like Caroline Klaus vibes. Like Klaus gives her a dress. She's like, I'm not gonna wear it. And then she shows up wearing it. Same vibe. We don't even make it to the event and we're already participating in premarital sinning, okay? She's on her knees, they're doing things, and then they go to the event, and they're like driving to the event, and then they're like in the car, and she's like, so what do you do for work? Like, it's so funny because it's like, you just put this man's dingling in your mouth twice now, and you let him put a firearm up your punani. And now we're like, what do you do for a living? What do you do for work? What do you do while you're not here? Girl. Like, it's so dumb. So anyways, and then he goes on this long monologue that we've already heard multiple times about how he saves people. And he's just saving people, which, yes, I get it. It is good. Don't flame me in the comments. Like, I get it. Like, it's good. Do I need to hear it multiple times throughout the entire book? It's literally like the author is trying to convince us to like him. She's like, yeah, he murders and stalks and borderline does things without consent. But he saves people. So forget about everything else because he saves people. He saves. Like, that's what this entire book feels like every time he opens his mouth. So Anyways, they're at the event. There's really nothing to note about the event. It's a big event, whatever. So at the event, there's a huge mansion, and Zaid and Addie sneak off to a theater room, and guess what happens next? Wrong! Get your head out of the gutter. They don't do it. They watch a scary movie, and then they do it during the scary movie. So yeah. Anyways, this happens, and we also find out that Addie's not like other girls. Fear turns her on, and it's like, yes, girl, we're halfway through the book. We know this, okay? We know. Anyways, at this point, we're back in the ballroom. Mark is like, come to my office. Let's talk about Gigi, because we care about who killed her. So Mark gives info on Gigi's murder, and he thinks her husband did it. He's like, John definitely did it because John was just a bad guy. You know, John was just an alcoholic and had a gambling problem. So he did it. And she's like, okay. So Addie starts to think it was John instead of the stalker based on what this guy said. So, okay. And her husband was gambling away all their money to a mob boss at the time, which, how many mob bosses are there? Like, is everyone a mob boss? Who are the real people? You know what I mean? Time skips. Week later. And she's doing self-defense lessons with Zaid. He's teaching her, because, okay, he's a little worried. So he has this, like, reality check where he's like, oh, I'm putting this girl in a lot of danger. Maybe I should teach her the skills to protect herself. So we get like a fun little teaching you self-defense skills, okay? Making sure she's prepared, which I think is kind of cute. Like, it's cute, okay? Cute. But also, like, buy her a firearm. That would also help. So, anyway, so she wakes up, and we get a really cute moment, okay? So, the next night, she wakes up. He's on her balcony. Again, broke into her house. But, like, he's on her balcony, and he's sad. And this is the first time we kind of see him in, like, any other mood other than, like, I take what's mine. I murder people. Blah. You know, he's in, like, I'm sad boy. Comfort me. I'm sad boy. And I kind of love it. And I think I have a problem. It was at this point I realized I have a problem. So he's sweet baby boy. And, yeah. So she, like, gives him a shoulder massage. And he's just like, I'm thinking about this girl who I wasn't able to save, and it's all my fault, and I suck. And she's like, no, you don't. It's really cute. I like him sad. Time for haunted fair. Remember that haunted fair I mentioned earlier? It's time. It's time. Let's get to the haunted fair. Her and Daya are waiting in line at this haunted mansion to go into, and Mark and creepy 3 friends of Mark, creepy friends, are all standing behind them in line, and they're like, oh my god, Addie, like, what's up? You were just at my event. Like, where's Zaid? Is he with you? And Addie's like, yeah, he's in the bathroom, actually. So, don't try anything, because he is here. He's definitely here. Like, that's what she sounds like. She's like, oh yeah, he's definitely here. He was here. You know what? He actually went to the bathroom. But he's here. So, you know, I'm not alone with Daya. Like, he knows. He knows he's not there. And then we get, like, a long, painfully long and detailed description of the haunted house. Like I care, and I don't. But it's so long and so descript. I just feel like there's, like, so many things that could be taken out of this book, including that. Like, I don't love horror as much as she does. I don't care. Like, moving on. Then we get the next chapter, which is in Zaid's POV, The Shadow. I'm switching to Zaid now because she knows who he is, okay? So Zaid's there, shocker, spying on Addie, spying on Mark, really spying on Mark because he is there to, you know, end him. Or just keep an eye on, make sure, because Mark and his friends are there to steal people for trafficking. And Zaid's like, nah. And then he's also like, oh, Addie's here, cool, I can keep an eye on everybody at once, so I can do both my jobs. So he's chilling. He ends up in the house Addie and Daya are in, while also Mark's in there, but there's like a bunch of doors, so he's like getting lost, but he's also trying to protect Addie. It's long and confusing, and it doesn't really matter. All you really need to know is that it ends with, this whole little scene ends with him coming out of the haunted house and hearing Mark talk about having a hit on Addie and that, like, they're gonna kidnap Addie or whatever, okay? Then that's all, and then it switches to chapters, so we don't really get to know what happens to Mark yet. We're moving on. Stay with me. So Addie leaves Daya. Daya's like, girl, I need to sit down, which, me, okay, you've been in a fair all day, I need to sit. I'm a sit girl, I have to sit. So Daya's like, I need to sit. And Addie's like, okay, I'm just gonna go in the house of mirrors by myself. You sit. Like, wonderful friend. Wonderful. I would sit with my friend, but whatever. So she goes by herself while we have a group of creepy people and her stalker at the fair. She goes to the mirror room, okay? The mirror house. And then all of a sudden, she's getting lost in the mirror house. 30 minutes till closing, by the way. She lets us know. Who's going in a maze 30 minutes till closing? Other than our girl Addie. So she's in this maze. And then we hear a sexy voice. Little mouse. Little mouse. And we're like, oh, stalker's in here with me. And she's lost. She can hear him. She's like, okay, well, this is great. So it's time to play tag again. It's time to play tag. And then he's like, run. If I catch you, I f*** you. You better run, girl. Personally, I would trip on purpose. I let him catch me, you know what I mean? But she's running for her life, for her virtue. So she's running. He catches her, and this scene is probably the steamiest scene out of the entire book. I'm not gonna lie. And it's for the Praise Kink girlies. We also get a love confession in the midst of all of this, which I am gonna share. And I'm not gonna lie. It does things to me. Like, I love it, and I kind of love him. It makes me forget that he's a murderer and he stalks, you know? You want to know why I love the House of Mirrors? He murmurs in my ear, eliciting sparks throughout my nerve endings. His voice is full of dark promises and dangerous beginnings. I swallow thickly. Why? I whisper. Look around you, he commands softly. Hesitantly, I pull my eyes away from his, dragging my gaze across the dozens of mirrors. What you're seeing now is what I see every day. No matter how far I run, how hard I try to escape you, you're everywhere I go. You're everything I see. Loving you is like being trapped in a house of mirrors, little mouse, and I've never felt so at home while being so lost inside you. Cute, but also, like, she's everywhere because you're everywhere. Like, she's everywhere you are because you follow her and you're a stalker. Still cute, though, nonetheless. One thing about this author is she knows how to write smut, okay? I think it's a she. I don't know if the author is a boy or girl or a they, them, but the author knows how to write smut. One thing about her, she's gonna write a good scene, okay? Plot, shoddy, and a lot of detail that doesn't need to be there, and she can't really pick a genre, but she knows her stuff when it comes to smut. So honestly, the smut carries the book. And for the next 20 pages, it's all we get, smut. Then Dia calls and she's like, it's been 2 hours. Where are you? And she's like, oh my God, it's been 2 hours? Like, I've been in here with him, getting it on for 2 hours? Oh my God. Literally me. But yeah, so that's what she does. And then we get back to Zaid and we kind of find out what happened, like, with all that stuff when it cut off earlier. Mark gets tortured, surprise. But we find out that Mark is part of this ritual thing. Now, I didn't mention it earlier, but I'm going to mention it now. Throughout the book, part of his, like, finding people and searching and saving people is because he saw this video of this human sacrifice ritual happen, like a leaked video of a human sacrifice ritual, and his sole purpose was, like, finding the people in that video and bringing them to justice. His justice. So ending them, really. But that's been this whole thing. So he's like, I need to find the ritual people, whatever. So he's torturing Mark, and he's interrogating him about the ritual, and we find out he is part of the ritual. He also finds out that Addie is the target of the society, like the ritual society. He finds out, Mark's like, yeah, Addie's had a target on her back before I even met her. Like, when I sent that picture in, they were like, yeah, she's on our radar. And there's a bunch of money as a reward for Addie in the society radar. So we're like, okay, weird. Who wants Addie? But okay. Now, Mark and his friends are dead. Moving on, a couple days later, he's infiltrated the ritual society thing, and the guy invites him to, like, the initiation to the ritual to become one of those people to get closer to make them all end, you know? So that happened. Simultaneously, Addie's finding out that Zaid killed all those people, killed Mark, killed the 3 people. Like, not shocking. We know he's a murderer. But at this point, she's like, you know what? I can't be with him. He's a murderer. And it's like, girl, you knew he was a murderer. Last night in the mirror room, you knew he was a murderer, and that didn't stop you. You know what I mean? So, like, but she has a conscience now. She woke up. So she's like, actually, I don't want to be with the murderer. So she's like, I'm going to tell him. I'm going to tell him that I don't want to be with him because he's a murderer. And then he breaks into her house and we get in a little cat and mouse game and we play tag again, and she's running through the woods. He catches her. They do it on the woods. They do it in the car. They do it in the house. They do it all night. And really, at this point, we're like, okay. And then they're like in the woods, right? So anyway, they're doing it in the woods, whatever. Before they do it, she's like, I can't be with you. You're a murderer. And he's like, yeah, but I only kill bad people. So, wanna f***? And she's like, yeah. So that's what they do. All night, everywhere, multiple places. And yeah, and then we're talking about Gigi again. And at this point, I don't care about your grandma. Like, I don't care about your grandma. You know, like that scene is like, I ate my grandma. Like, I don't care. I do not care about your grandma. Or, sorry, your great grandma. Nana's cool. Gigi is annoying. He goes on and on to Addie, telling Addie, like, okay, this is, mind you, we're done with like the activities for the night. We're like sitting on the balcony and chatting. And he's just like on and on to Addie about how much good he does and how many people he saves. Like, oh my God. Literally, if I have to read another sentence about him saving people, I'm going to burn the book. Anyways, there's just so much like retelling, okay? Because there's like a whole couple pages of him filling Addie in on everything about the ritual and everything. And it's like, we already know this information because we're the readers and we've been reading along. We know what the ritual is. We know all this stuff, but we get to listen to him repeat all of it to Addie. So there's a lot of that in this book. After all this whole like him bearing his soul to her, which whatever, she's like, why do you do this? Why do you put yourself in this position? Why do you do this for people? And in her head, she's like, he was probably abused or something, or he was a victim of trafficking, or he had someone who's a victim and now he's getting back. It's not that deep. Literally not that deep. He was just like, because I want to. And I only do what I want. And this is what I want to do. That's his full explanation. Which I get it. Like, you don't have to have like a whole... He's like, no, this guy had a great life. My parents loved me. Nothing bad ever happened to me. I just do this because I want to. I only do things I want to. Yeah, we get it. So at this point, I'm like, where's Daya? Like, where's Daya? I need Daya to save me because I'm over this. And then Daya shows up and she catches them in the room together. And she's like, and then she starts throwing shit at the shadow. And she's like, what are you doing here? She's like, throwing stuff. Queen, honestly. And then Daya is filled in on their relationship. And she's like, oh, okay, so we don't hate him. And then Addie's like, no, I'm actually kind of like really turned on by him. And then Daya's like, okay, I mean, he's sexy, so I support. Which is Queen. So then we find a letter to Gigi from Marcus's dad. We find out Marcus's dad is Gigi's husband's best friend. Are you following? This is like the downfall of this book, okay? The good thing's the smut, the bad thing is this subplot of a whodunit mystery. So we get this letter from Mark's dad, which I think his name's Frank. Pretty sure it's Frank. Mark's dad, which is John's best friend. So Gigi's husband's bestie sends this to her. Not the stalker, just this random dude. Okay? He says, my Guinevere, it pains me to write this letter. I sit here and I mourn for what could have been, for what could still be, but yet you refuse to see. I've loved you since the moment I saw you, Guinevere. I've loved you though you have married another, and now that I know you've given yourself to a different man, a man that's not me, my love still persists. I've waited so long for you already, and now yet another has come between us, has stopped me from taking you as mine. Why do you insist on doing this to me, to us? It plagues me, keeps me from sleeping at night. The only thing I can think of doing is cutting you from my life and ending this misery for good. Sincerely, your true love. So he's a little cray-cray, just a little bit cray-cray. So we find out this whole time, we're like, oh, it's the stalker who killed her. Oh, it's her drunk husband. We find out it could actually be her drunk husband's best friend who's been in love with her this whole time. Who saw it coming? No one. And this man simultaneously is also the creepy ritual guy, Mark's father. The web, everything's connected. Everything is connected. So then they go looking for more clues because they're like, okay, well now we need to know, like, what? Like, we just read this letter and now what? So they find this like bloody watch and they're like, okay, well, who's this? So whatever, moving on. We're going to Zaid's POV now. So Zaid's in this like creepy society ritual thing, but it's not the initiation. It's like an event before the initiation that he got called like last minute, and they were like, hey man, we're gonna have an event together. Not the initiation, but like this really last minute weird creepy dinner like a week before the initiation. You're invited, get your ass down here. And he's like, okay, sus, but I'll be there. So he goes. So he's doing that. Meanwhile, Addie and Daya are still playing detective, and they find the watch, whatever. They send it in, and they find out that the bracelet is Frank's, so Mark's dad, the guy who wrote the letter. And they're like, oh, case solved. Frank did it. And then Daya goes, oh yeah, and I also sent in the confession letter that was written about Gigi's death to a handwriting specialist and found out that Nana, the one who wrote that letter about Gigi's death, Gigi's Nana's mom, Nana was 16 at the time, wrote a confession saying that, like, basically covering up the murder. And Daya was like, also didn't want to tell you, but I kind of sent that letter in to get analyzed by like a handwriting specialist. And I actually found out that your Nana helped cover up the murder. And then instead of being mad, they're like, well, she was 16. Poor girl. She was forced to cover up the murder of her mother. That's so sad. Case fucking closed. Okay. We're done talking about Gigi. Thank God. It only took the entire book, but we're done talking about her. Once the case is solved, she's like, okay, well now I can finish writing my indie romance novel because I'm an author. I'm like, you haven't been an author this entire time. You've been playing detective, but okay. So anyways, we're back to this last minute society ritual thing. Detailed heist description of like, I'm saving the girl and da-da-da-da. So anyways, he saves another person. Yippee. Then there's more sexy time and an entire chapter, to be honest. And then it's time for the ritual that we have been waiting for. The big shebang. The one that's going to take down the whole society, okay? And at this point, I'm invested. I've been watching him take down people all book, and I'm like, okay, well now we're finally to the event that I've been waiting for. So, mind you, this is the second to last chapter. So we're like, okay, how much can we really get done in the last two chapters? We're about to find out, really. He gets into the initiation. They're down in the dungeon. He starts taking out people one by one. He takes the girl that was like supposed to be initiated or eaten or whatever, like ritualed, and he gives her to his buddy and he's like, take her to safety. And he's doing things and then boom, explosion. Not planned by him. Random explosion. He blows up. He didn't blow up, but he like blows back. He falls. And then he's like, oh, my head hurts. What's going on? That wasn't me or my people. What was that? And then Jay, bestie hacker from the beginning, runs in and he's like, I got here as fast as I can. I found out they leaked the video on purpose. This whole thing was a setup. They knew we were coming. And then he looks up. And there's a man, undisclosed. We don't get to know who he is. And he is a mystery man pointing a weapon at Zaid. And Zaid looks up and goes, you? Chapter over. Chapter's over. We have one chapter left. Do you smell a cliffhanger? I smell a cliffhanger. So now we're in Addie's POV. And Addie is sleeping. She's always sleeping. She's sleeping from a lot of Addie's chapters start with her waking up, which kind of weird, but anyways, Addie wakes up. She has like a bunch of text messages from Daya. Texts like, are you awake? I'm really upset right now. Could use a friend. Will you come over? I'd really appreciate it. And Daya's like, or not Daya. Addie's like, okay. So she calls her and Daya's not picking up. And she's like, well, that's weird. So she gets up, she starts rushing, she gets clothes on, she gets in the car, she starts driving to Daya's house. Shocker! It wasn't Daya. It wasn't Daya. It was a trap. It was a trap. Presumably the same people who set up her boyfriend, okay? So she's driving to Daya's house. Keep in mind, there are 2 pages left of this book. So We're not gonna get any closure. So she's driving, a car veers into the back of her car, rolls off the road, she crashes, and then she's like, oh, what is going on? Kind of similar to Zayd, okay? She's like, what's going on? And then there's these guys that are standing there over her, and here is the last 4 lines of the book. Just get her in the van, Rio. Max is already going to be pissed that we f***ed his van, so quit around. The police will be here soon. Another flash of a grin. Time to go to sleep, princess. And then darkness. She gets knocked out. We find out Max sent his men to go pick her up. The end. It was at this point I realized this is a series. And here's the really funny part about this whole thing is I thought this was a standalone. Like I don't know why. I think because usually when a book blows up on TikTok and everybody's talking about it, it's a standalone. Like it's not like a whole series you have to read. It's usually just like a one-off book. So I'm like, oh, I could read a almost 600-page book for a video. Easy. Does anybody notice the number 1 on the spine of this book? This is a series. And I did not come to that conclusion until the last page when I realized we're ending on a cliffhanger. And like, I have to read the other one. I don't even know if the other one's out, if there's more than 2. Like, but that's the whole book. I need to like go scrub my brain with like a really rough sponge to get this out of my head. Definitely go buy it if you want to. There's details I left out, so it's definitely still worth a read if you want. Anyways, that's it, you guys. Wild ride. Thanks for hanging out with me while I gave you an unhinged breakdown of this book. Let me know if there's any other book you want me to break down that hasn't been broke down yet. I couldn't find a video on this one, so I did it, but if there's one you want me to break down, let me know in the comments. And subscribe to my channel if you liked this video. Click the like button if you had a laugh or cry or now you're gonna have nightmares. And subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!